It upholds the significance of all Indigenous peoples who live and continue to live in this place we love. In the days and weeks and months and years ahead, we have many opportunities to move forward in reflection, action, and reconciliation with Indigenous communities as we seek ways to heal with hearts and minds together. And I'll just ask everyone to take a short moment of a reflection on some gratitude at the moment. Thank you. So welcome to the second Teacher Tales on Tuesday. My name is Jan Bewley, and I'm incredibly fortunate to offer classes in literacy and drama education at MUN's Faculty of Education. I'm delighted to have you joining me tonight as we reflect on the legacy of 100 years of teacher education in Newfoundland and Labrador, where we have been, where we are presently, and where and how we hope to grow. Tonight, I have some questions for each of you to consider, and I'll call on you to respond so that we all have a chance to share our voices. The Teacher Tales on Tuesday are also being recorded, and there are people tuning into the conversation right now across the land. So let's get started. We're a pretty eclectic bunch tonight, and I thought I would take a moment to just have you situate listeners as to where you are. So Sarah Lynn, where are you zooming in from tonight?
From Churchill Falls, Labrador.
And how long have you been there?
I've been here for 8 years, but I started teaching on the coast of Labrador and then moved to Central Labrador, and that's where I've been for the last 8 years. Yeah, so 12 years teaching altogether.
Oh, welcome, Sarah Lynn. Hooray. And John Ackerman, where are you calling in from tonight?
I'm calling in from La Crete, Alberta. It's about 2 hours south of Northwest Territories border. It's a predominantly Mennonite community, and I've been up here for about 8 years now. Teaching, this is my first year teaching, but it's been up here for about 8 years. And a recent graduate, John. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And Marie Beth, where are you calling in from tonight?
Calling in from St. John's, not far from Memorial University. My original place of residency was the Northeast Coast, the New West Valley area, and my teaching career is practically evenly split between the two.
Wow, great. Well, welcome, Marie Beth. And Jackie Rideout, where have we reached you, and what's your connection to MUN?
Well, I'm at home this evening in lovely Topsail, Conception Bay South. My connection to MUN is certainly I'm a proud graduate of Memorial University, Faculty of Education, and currently the French coordinator for the Faculty of Education. So I work with all our fine students who are pursuing to be FSL and FFL teachers.
Great. Well, welcome all. We've got lots of things to talk about. So I'm going to leap in with a question, and I'm going to start with you, John, with this. I'd like you to think back to your beginning year as a brand new teacher. And even before that, when you were at MUN not so long ago, I'd like you to reflect on what drew you to the teaching profession.
Well, you know, for me, I grew up around teachers, and my grandfather was a teacher, and lots of aunts were teachers. But I think I always wanted to go that route. And I was at Memorial earlier in my career, and then I wasn't doing so well, so I stepped out and fell into the workplace. And then I thought that that dream had gone. And then my wife, which is a teacher up here in Alberta, decided that no, we can do this. So we went back. So it was a little bit daunting at the tender young age I am to go back to school with people that could have been my children. But I got to say, the group that I went through were outstanding and great. So it was a great experience. Yeah.
And John, I just want to layer on my admiration for you in leaving family behind for a whole year and a bit, right? What age of kids did you say goodbye to in Alberta while you were here?
We were fortunate. The first year we were there, my wife was on maternity leave, so we had two still, and one was 3 and one was just 1. So we were able to spend the year in Newfoundland and spend time with family. The second year was a little bit tougher because we were apart for the entire year. I was able to come home for Christmas and stuff like that. I probably is the only one in the country that has benefited from COVID because I was able to come home early and see my family. But I don't say that too loudly because not very many people were able to that. But besides that, it was hard. It was a hard year, yeah.
Yeah, way to go. Way to go. Sarah Lynn, how about you? What drew you to the teaching profession 12 years ago?
Well, I grew up in a really small town of only 600 people, and the town I grew up in was, we produce electricity. So I was only really exposed to my teachers. My parents didn't work at the power plant, but they were service workers, and all of the most positive experiences that I had as a youth here came from interacting with teachers, and it was just a positive environment, and I wanted to reciprocate that and kind of give back from all the good experiences that I had here. So I always wanted to come back to where I went to school, and I wanted my own kids to do that. But I guess I'm a bit selfish too. I find teaching very personally rewarding. When I go home at the end of the day, just knowing that I had an impact on one kid's learning, give myself a pat on the back, like I did something very productive today. So yeah, so for some selfish reasons, I guess.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Sarah Lynn. The personal rewards are pretty incredible. Yeah. Jackie, how about you? What drew you to teaching? How many years ago, Jackie?
Oh, a long time now, Jan.
You're allowed to lie. You can lie. You can tell a pack of lies tonight.
No, I'm not going to lie. Well, I'm a retired teacher. So I've spent 31 years as an educator, and I'm still an educator back in the Faculty of Education. And this semester, I'm so delighted to actually be teaching again. So I always tell everybody, my friends and my family, I don't know how to do anything else. I'm just a teacher. And my husband will always say to me, stop using your teacher voice. I've never ever wanted to be anything else. And I can remember my mom telling the story about my dad, because I'd be down in the basement, and I grew up in Labrador too, in Goose Bay. My dad was on the military base there. And I'd be in the basement, and I'd have my dog and my dolls and stuffed animals. They were all lined up, and I got a chalkboard for Christmas, and I was teaching them, and they were listening. And I can remember my mom saying, Dad would come up and he'd say, you think she's okay? So I guess right from the beginning, I was headed to be a teacher, never look back, and love it. And I keep telling the students this year, you've chosen the best career in the whole entire world, right?
Yeah, I agree, Jackie. And Marie Beth, how about you? What drew you to this profession?
Well, in high school, I actually was interested in both journalism and psychiatry. But in small town Newfoundland, of course, in the 60s, and I will go back to there, there weren't an awful lot of various careers to choose from. Teaching, nursing, RCMP, and so on would be the most that you would be involved with. So in my case, I was an Anglican, but educated in United Church schools. And in these days, of course, Latin was the key foreign language in schools. In Anglican schools, but from the United Church schools, French had been the foreign language for quite a long time. So that put me in a sort of an enviable position, I suppose, coming out. And I did go out and do 1 year after 3 years completed at Memorial. And I was in high demand with the Anglican school boards, of course, because I could teach French And not an awful lot of teachers were doing that, or could do that at that time.
Huh. So you had a little niche.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Neat, neat.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for leaping in with that. My second question might require you to think a little bit, and I don't want to rush here. I'd like you to think back to a student, pinpoint a particular child or learning incident that taught you a whole lot about humanity or about life in general. If there was a child or a learning incident that happened in a classroom, it might have been a school-wide event, it might have been a guest speaker that is still resonating in your heart and your mind. And I'm going to start with Jackie on this. If you're ready, Jackie, are you?
Well, I could pick, when you're asking that question, I can see like probably 3 or 4 faces, pop into my head. But I'm going to pick one student, a grade 8 student. When I went to a new school, actually, when we moved into the city, when my daughter was 4, because I wanted her to go into early French immersion.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been offered a job at a high school and one at a junior high school. And I picked the junior high school because that's where my heart and soul is, with intermediate students. And people were like, why? Oh my God, high school is so much easier. So being the new teacher in the school, I got the hard classes of grade 8 core French, the 8-3s, give it to the new teacher. And in that class of 33, I think I had 22 boys, and they were a difficult, challenging group. And there was one in particular who was kind of he was the leader, and whatever he did, well, the class followed. And we connected. We made a really good connection. He was very much into music. And I tried to, reach him through his music, and let him do what he wanted to do for a little bit in order to do what I wanted him to do. So he kind of said, oh, yeah, okay. So I quite incorporated that. And they turned out to be my favorite class of all time. But him in particular, I had organized a trip to take them to the Quebec Winter Carnival. And I got buzzed to the office at lunchtime while I was on duty. And the secretary said, you need to come down. There's a parent. And I said, well, I'm on duty. So can you take a message? She said, no, you have to come down. So I said, oh dear, something is, So down I go, and it's his father. And he said, Miss Rideout, I have the check, he said, for the deposit for the Quebec trip. I said, oh, it's okay. I said, you can just give it to the secretary. That's fine. He said, no, I have to give it to you. And I said, oh, okay. He said, I have never come to school since my child has been in school to give money for him to do or be involved in anything. And he said, so I have to give this check to you. Wow. Because he said, you don't understand. He said, the importance of it. And I said, oh, wow. I said, well, I'll greatly take it. And it was a student who you would never think that would want to go to Quebec. And he went, and he got homesick. He had such a great time. I taught him again the next year. He went on to high school. He always keeps in touch with me. He's a chef now.
Wow.
But yeah, so he is probably one of the kids that I will never forget.
Yeah. And taught you about the importance of connection.
He taught me, I learned so much from him then I think he taught me way more than I taught him in grade 8 core French.
Wow.
But yeah, it
Beautiful.
was a fantastic experience.
That's a beautiful story, Jackie. Thanks. Let's go to John. Can you pinpoint a child this year, John, who's impacted you or somewhere along the line?
Probably not one, probably the collective, to be honest with you. I'm really involved with and interested in how people learn and how more values come through and teachable moments. And we do a lot of that in the classroom, and they just come organically and naturally. Discussions about values and stuff like that. Being in a predominantly Mennonite community, they do have some high values and they're great people. But sometimes it's differences that we talk about, and it's okay to be different. It's okay to be a bit different about things, and they're good people, and there's good people all around. But I am enjoying, from my perspective, learning more about what's going on than I'm probably taking away more this year than the kids are getting from me, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous on learning of the educational standpoint and learning about the social emotional issues that go on and just how to communicate, which is fabulous.
Lovely. Lovely. Thanks, John. Sarah Lynn, over to you.
I'm going to speak about a student who I've taught in the last recent years. A little girl who has selective mutism. So this was very new to me in teaching. I had never come across it before. I didn't know anything about it. Didn't know what it was or why it was even a thing. And it was pre-COVID, but it was amongst a period of time when there was a lot of stress in everybody's life. So this was a child who didn't communicate in person, so let alone over a webcam. So she had been at this school since she was in kindergarten, and had never spoke. She was actually in my daughter's class. My daughter interacted with her and played with her, but never completed a reading assessment or any kind of speaking outcomes, nothing. So just, always mute. And a lot of teachers had come to the impression that she was stubborn, or it was behavioral, she was choosing this, and not so much had written her off, but weren't willing to invest the time that it would take to kind of research this and find out, how can we help this child, what's going on. So when she came to me, she didn't talk, she didn't, had no interest in wanting to speak or do anything extra. I had reached out to her family and doing a lot of research on the side, interacting with the guidance counselor, things like that. The family were kind of, they didn't agree that they thought it was anything related to anxiety, and didn't want her to receive any help or disclose anything. They just thought same thing. She was choosing this, and it was kind of like her acting out because she didn't want to go to school or what have you. So it took a lot of extra work, a lot of extra time, and I started bringing her mom in with her after school. And it was something that we needed to do. Because I was fearful she'd go to the next grade and the teacher would say, well, I have nothing, I have no file, I have nothing to report. And I was sick of seeing unable to assess. And I just thought there's got to be one way that we can get something from this child. If she moves and leaves the school, it's going to look bad on us if we have nothing to provide. So every Tuesday, her mom and her older brother would come in with her, and she would speak to me, she would read to me, and inside I was like, oh my God, she's actually speaking. And while I was like freaking out inside because I had never heard her voice, I was trying to stay calm and try to get some assessment out of her. But eventually she did open up a little bit, never to any teachers that she's had afterwards, but every time I run into her mom, she'll say, thank you so much for investing that extra time. And they had no idea. She actually was diagnosed with anxiety afterwards and received some help, but they really had no idea because the parents weren't able to see how she was interacting at school. At home she was fine, they had no idea, right? So that Yeah, that's still impacting me now. Just actually had a meeting recently because she was a former student. So.
How beautiful that is. Wow. Marie Beth, over to you.
Yes, okay, I'll just make a comment on the selective mute thing as well. My husband, who taught a whole lifetime as well, he did come across a case like that in a city school years ago. But back to the idea of standout children, standout students. I was in high school, teaching high school nearly all my career. And as you say, I can think of back when I was in my 20s, of course, and in a new school, very young, and having a French club, having a drama club with another student, with another teacher there. And it was a few students in particular who really stood out because they were so enthused to have something like this going on in a rural community. And I know that we took them into Gander, for instance, and interacted with a drama club in there, and then some of the teachers and students came back. In my private tutoring that I've done for a number of years as well, I remember one student that I taught really from grade 6 to grade 11, year after year. There's another student that with a very supportive family as well, and I taught her like high school French, and then even when she went in university, I tutored her with her courses there. So these are students that stand out. Yes.
And they still make you smile. I can see that.
And still in
Lovely.
contact with some of them,
Yeah.
yes.
Beautiful. As you were talking, I was thinking, and I don't usually share stories, not like this, but I feel compelled to tell you about a little girl I taught in grade 3 who's named Alicia, and her younger sister, Sarah, was in kindergarten. I taught grade 3 for 22 years, and Alicia's little sister, Sarah, was born with her 2 fingers fused together like that. So at lunchtime, Alicia would go over to the kindergarten room and open up Sarah's Del Monte fruit cup because she couldn't get her fingers in it to pull it. And she was kind of a funny little cricket. She didn't want to be seen not being able to do it. And her sister sort of pulled it a little bit, and then she pulled it the rest of the way. And I happened to say to Alicia one day, why don't you write to the Del Monte Fruit Cup Company in Toronto and tell them about Sarah, and tell them that it's hard for her to open up that fruit cup thing. And do you know, I like to think this, the Del Monte Fruit Cup Company came to Halifax to visit the school. They were on a business trip anyway, so they came, these big executive guys. And they promised Alicia that she would, they promised her that her letter had made a difference. And to this day, if you buy Del Monte fruit cups, the pull tab's a little wider and it's much easier to pull up for little kids. And I like to think that that child made a difference to the world. Kids can make a difference, right? And I think we don't underestimate that. We teachers know, yeah. I love this question. I want you to think about a gift that you were given. It might have been not something material, actually. It might have been a real gift that you were given from a student or a parent, or perhaps at a retirement. Was there something that stands out for you? Or anything you've given, John, as a parent, as a gift to a teacher? I'm going to start with Sarah Lynn on this one.
Okay. A gift I've received. Oh my gosh. Like something tangible, something.
Oh, it might be. It might be a drawing that you were given from a little girl who moved away, or a jar of jam. Or did you ever give a teacher something?
Well, I have a twin sister who teaches here as well, so I'm always getting personal items. But I don't know. I'm gonna skip it.
And we might come back to you. Yeah. Okay. Marie Beth, how about you?
Yes, okay. I do have a few incidents like this. I'll show all of you a picture that I have here.
Oh,
Okay, this is a picture that came from,
wow.
you can all see it? Yes.
Yes,
It's a
we
picture
can.
that came from a high school student that I tutored in 2003. And he didn't actually give me this. I bought it from him. I was so impressed. And it's a painting of St. Brendan's. I think that his family had a connection to St. Brendan's,
Wow.
and I certainly keep it to this day. Another gift, I guess you would say, and it's a gift of thoughts, coming again from my period when I was with drama clubs, French clubs, and so on. And this student sent in this to me, which I laminated because it will stay with me for the rest of my life, I guess. And it was this comment that came from a student that had gone for a month in Miquelon, that I had encouraged to go for a month in Miquelon. And that was quite amazing. She told me that it was foggy the whole 30 days that she was there, but her French really came around by the end of the first week. And she said, you were ahead of the times back then, giving us a taste of drama and class, especially French culture. She said, most importantly, you believed in us and helped us to dream bigger and better for our future lives. And that will really stay with me forever.
Yeah. Marie Beth, what's the name of the student? Who's the artist?
I think it's Brian Doyle.
Wow.
I'm not sure if he went on to do much more painting after that, but it's excellent. Yes.
How beautiful. That's lovely. John, over to you.
Last year when I did my internship, I was quite humbled at the gifts I got over Christmas, only being there for 3 months, which was great. But the gift that I'm going to talk about actually wasn't given to me by a student. It was actually given to me by my aunt. And it's a little paperweight. It's a soccer shoe paperweight. And it was meant to be put on my desk when I finished teaching. So what ended up happening was I never ever finished until recently. So.
Beautiful. Had she been given it, John?
No.
No.
She gave it to me. She gave it to me because she wanted it to be on my desk because I was going to be a phys ed teacher before, and she wanted to put it on my desk. And she was a principal, and it was a lovely gift. And it never got used the way it was intended to use until this year. Yeah. So
that's lovely. Jackie, how about you?
I think once again, I can probably come up with different ones, but I had one particular class who I was particularly close to, and they were a different cohort because they were the first intermediate, multi-age, late French immersion group in the province. And yeah, so we got to know each other very well. They were a small group. There was only 13 of them, combination of grade 7 and grade 8. And during that year, I was pregnant. And if you know me, I'm a basketball fanatic. I coached for so many years, the under 15 boys team. And so every example I ever used in teaching was around basketball stats and everything else. And they had a baby shower for me before I went on maternity leave. And they had this great big box that they put their money together to get me a baby gift. And it was a New York Knicks jersey for the baby. I still have it. And you know, they're expensive. But yeah, and they knew how much that would mean. Yeah, great group of kids.
How lovely. How lovely.
Yeah. All right, you've inspired me. I have a couple ideas.
Okay, Sarah Lynn, over to you.
I started my teaching career in Natchitoches on the coast of Labrador, the North Coast. So I think I was 23 years old, heading up there with a couple friends who I graduated with, and very, very green. Didn't really know a whole lot about Innu culture, but it was a really good experience. So myself and two other teachers, we lived together, and we lived in teacher housing right across from the school, so kids would visit pretty frequently. And kind of like myself, we were positive influences on them. You know, they would visit each night, and we'd always give whatever we could to them. If they were hungry, if they were thirsty, if they, just wanted someone to talk to, our door was pretty open. We had nothing else to do. There was no internet or cable or anything there, and we probably couldn't have afforded it anyway. But when we were getting ready to go, there was a high turnover for teachers there every year, and we had a really good year there, but that was the last year that Natuashish was a part of the Labrador School Board. They went private after that. So it meant a lot of uncertainties for a lot of teachers, and a lot of teachers who had already been there. And this one little girl came up one day and she said, Miss, I want you to take my puppy, Snowflake. And I said, I can't take your puppy. I said, I don't even have anywhere to live when I go here. When I leave here, I can't take your puppy. She said, but if you take my puppy, I know you'll bring it back, so you'll come back. So we kept the dog for a couple of days, took some pictures with it, but we couldn't take it. And children up there, they don't have access to stores or ability to purchase anything. So they were giving you whatever they could find, any handmade goods. I love earrings, themed earrings, lots of handmade beadwork, even ones that they probably stole from their parents. But with the kindest of hearts and the best of intentions. So gifts that weren't supposed to be for me, but it was the thought behind it that mattered.
That's lovely. I come from a family of 5, and my mother on the last day of June always sent each one of us with a little pot of jam, and we all had to give jam to our teachers for the summer. It was kind of a tradition. My next question is around some advice that you would offer to teacher candidates who are graduating in the next year. What advice would you give to a brand new teacher? Jackie?
Connect. Make connections. It's way more important than the learning outcomes. It's way more important than the textbook. We've already had this conversation in my course before they went out to their observation block. But connections with children and genuine connections. Find out what makes them tick. Find out what they're interested in. Let them know you care about them, because if you don't, they're smart people. But if they know you care about them, they will do almost anything to achieve. So connect.
Beautiful. John, the newest of the new. What advice would you give to a teacher who's graduating this year?
I got to agree with that. That, to me, knowing the people and letting them know you is key. I've done a lot of coaching throughout the years, and the job that I've done, I know how good a quality I've done, is if in 15 years they're willing to come up as an adult and talk to you, and genuinely talk to you. Not that you want them they'll hunt you down to talk to you. Then you've done a good job at being a good person to someone, right? But knowing the people is the key, because if they don't buy in, if they don't believe that you care about them, they're not going to do the schoolwork.
Thanks, John. Sarah Lynn, what advice would you give?
Well, I'm mentoring a new teacher this year, a grade 2 teacher. So I've only taught primary, with the exception of art many years ago. And I agree with what you both said, that connections are very important, getting to know your students. But in the last couple of years, there's been a big push on the universal design for learning. And, it's kind of taking kids out of boxes and focusing more on the way that they learn, and not focusing on what they can do, more on what they can do, and finding a way This new teacher was very curriculum focused, very outcome focused, and rightfully so. You know, he's here, he's got a job to do, first time getting paid, and wants to do well. But it's okay to ask for help and support if you need it, especially dealing with parents and communicating at home. And focus on routines. Don't think you can just jump in and start with the academics. It might take a month, it might take 2 months, but unless you have those connections and those routines, and you're comfortable, then start.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. That's beautifully said, Sarah Lynn. Yeah. Marie Beth, how about you?
I think I would tell people to go and think outside the box, and especially get a pan-Canadian perspective. I've been involved with the Encounters with Canada program, monitors that went for over 35, 40 years to the Terry Fox Centre in Ottawa, and worked with students all across the country. Of course, I have that pan-Canadian perspective as well, through Canadian Parents for French, and the amazing connections you can make with parents and students across the country. And for a couple of years as well, I worked with the Conseil Scolaire, with the French school board here in the province. So it was like the flip side of teaching. You weren't teaching French, you were teaching English to French students, French first language students. So as I say, go outside the box and think and get the wider perspective.
Great. Thanks, Marie Beth. Oh, good. We have time for one more quick question. I would like you to think of times when you've been overwhelmed as a teacher. And we've all been there. And I wonder how you push on through those tough times. Maybe if you want to talk about when you feel overwhelmed as a teacher, or when you have felt overwhelmed, and what keeps you going. How do you navigate that river? And I'm going to start with John.
Well, you know what? Being a first-year teacher and a bit of a mature, I guess, person in age, probably not mature in general, but in age mature, you get to the point that you got to do the job. And sometimes with my life, where I got a couple small kids and a wife, I'm trying to navigate it. And you're always trying to navigate it in a way that works best for your family, and you're doing justice to the position. So basically what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is I'm trying to take care of myself as best I can. Sometimes I don't do a good job of it, but I try to draw as much pleasure out of the work I do, and it kind of gives me a little bit of fuel, if that makes any sense. If I can pull something out of a day that's extremely tough, and and I can go home and I can relax for a little tiny bit before I start planning again, then it makes it a lot easier for the next day. If I look at the glass and think, oh, I didn't fill anything up today, then I go in the next day and I'm demoralized. So I try to always end with a little positive, right? So.
Marie Beth, what challenged you, and how did you keep going?
Well, again, if you were teaching English or math, for instance, these are subjects that students realize as part of their core curriculum, and it is much easier to teach these subjects. If you're doing something like religion or French in junior high in particular, before they have the option of deciding whether they're going to go on with it, it's quite difficult to motivate students. Large classes, large junior high classes, and again, a subject that is optional or will become optional. So that's probably the greatest challenge that I met.
And how did you navigate that and turn it into a positive?
Well, again, you have to try and dig deep and come up with something, probably draw something in from the outside world that they can relate to, rather than just the textbook alone.
Yeah, beautiful. Sarah Lynn, how about you?
Um, I have three kids, and I live in a small town. And my husband and I we're active volunteers. So one thing that I struggle with a lot is work-life balance,
Yeah.
and I'm often overwhelmed. And as you guys know, teachers have trouble saying no. We don't say no. We're yes people. And I have to tell myself often, I need to, even tonight, I was like, oh my gosh, two of my kids have hockey. My son has piano lessons. I hadn't showered in 3 days. I should have said no. But I'm open for all opportunities. And as teachers, we want to learn and we want to have positive influences. And this was a great opportunity. So I have to say no more often. And I hate doing that. But your work-life balance, especially parents and new parents, I mean, it can be very exhausting. And I probably consume way too much coffee. But the last couple of years, I've gotten better at like John said, taking care of myself, doing something for me, because if I'm taking care of myself, then I'm better to take care of others. So sometimes you have to say no.
Yeah.
I hate it, but you do have to. You really do.
Thank you, Sarah.
And I'm gonna poke something else in there.
Yeah.
While we still have time. You need to avoid toxicity, avoid negative people. Be the positive person. Being around negativity or complainers, that can be overwhelming, and you don't want to take that home. You don't want that to seep in and affect you.
Wise words. I'm glad you tucked that in. Yeah. Jackie.
Yeah, I agree with that, Sarah Lynn. You hit the nail on the head there. Be the positive proton in the group. Absolutely. Teaching is a difficult job, and it really is. It's not easy. And for me, um, I'd spend a lot of time with extracurricular and a lot of hours with extracurricular, and I'd always get overwhelmed with planning and things like that because I always want to do it better, make it more fun. How do I make it more fun? And so just struggling to find the balance of working after school with kids and working in the classroom with kids, and just sometimes stop beating yourself up about it. Always got to be a song and dance. Some days it's just mundane stuff, and that's okay, because that can be fun too, because it's about you and what you bring into the classroom. It always doesn't have to be this extraordinary thing. It's okay just to be you and teach some days. And so just finding that balance. And like Sarah said, we don't say no. We always want it to be better and whatnot. And I think that's a common characteristic amongst everybody who love what they do in education.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Above my desk right here, I have 3 words, and they are nothing without joy. And I think about that every minute of my career. Nothing without joy. What a wonderful night this has been. I could talk to the 4 of you for hours. It's just been really fun. I'm so grateful, and special thanks to Morris Berry, Craig Adams, and Angela Hunt, who do lots of behind the scene things. They're going to be churning this out and posting it for people that couldn't come tonight. We're happy that we've had listeners out there in the world. The next Teacher Tales on Tuesday event is at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, November the 30th. And we'll hope that some people will tune in. I am grateful, Sarah Lynn in Churchill Falls, John Ackerman way up there in Northern Alberta, Marie Beth in St. John's, and Jackie Rideout in CBS. I will bid you all good night. Thanks for being part of Tuesday Tales with Teachers. See you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.